Right, Paul, first of all, thank you very much for being with us tonight.
Thanks for the opportunity.
It's very sad that you could not be with us tonight, but I know that you're traveling, I think, to China for other business, and you kindly agreed to be with us, if not in person, but at least through the screen. The theme of the conference, which is how to make the world a better place. This theme might sound a bit arrogant or a bit eccentric or a bit too optimistic, but we do believe at INSEAD that the role of businesses and corporations is indeed to make the world a better place. Would you agree to that?
Yeah, I certainly agree. First of all, let me extend my thanks for this opportunity and obviously my regrets for not being with you. But in order to make the world a better place, I have to be in China, and that was a long-standing commitment. But as you know, the relationship of Unilever and INSEAD go back a long time. My predecessor, Patrick Cheskov, obviously has a degree from INSEAD, and we were very happy to have the foundation or the sponsorship for obviously the women's side, which is very well managed. So yes, we're very close to INSEAD. Does the corporation have a role to play in making this world a better place? Absolutely so. It's very clear that in the crisis that we've just come out, which continues to linger on, especially in places like Europe, people have come to realize that our way of growing this world, of our way of capitalism, if you want to say, needs to be evolved. We've lifted an enormous amount of people out of poverty over the last decade and a half, about 500 million people, but that has come actually at a great price, a price of overconsumption, enormous levels of government and private debt, and frankly leaving too many people behind. In this world that we're living in, still 1 billion people go to bed hungry, not knowing if they wake up the next day. So people have started to ask themselves the right questions. Is this the right way of growing? And is this a sustainable and equitable way of growing? And as you well know, Jean-Marc, any system that is not in equilibrium will ultimately be rejected. And increasingly you see that happen. You see that happen in movements in Brazil, where 2 million people go on the streets in 2 minutes, or in Turkey, or I just came back from the Middle East, and the list goes on. Enormous movements are happening because of this transparency that especially young people now have, and they demand a better future for all. And companies would do well by taking notice of that and trying to figure out what they can do. Just to do CSR in today's world or philanthropy is not enough anymore. The issues that we face of hunger or youth unemployment or climate change or food security or obesity on the other side are issues of such proportion that we need to be co-responsible and develop business models that actually contribute to a better world, and that is what I'm passionate about. So in Unilever, we took a decision, a little bit audacious, a little bit courageous, that says we want to double our business, and we were 40 billion at that time. We had an objective of going to 80 billion, but we want to do that by decoupling our growth from the environmental impact. So make it totally neutral on environmental impact as a minimum, and then also increase the positive social impact. It got to some interesting targets, providing 1 billion people with health and wellness, especially around the nutritional sides, creating 500,000 jobs for smallhold farmers, making all of our agriculturally based materials sustainably. 50 targets, whole business model, all of our brands, all of our countries. We knew that that task obviously had not been set by any company, even until today, but it's absolutely needed. And if you give to society and you can positively show that you're actually helping solve some of these challenges out there related to your business models, you not only grow, you not only get accepted, you not only attract more people who feel energized to be part of that journey, but you find enormous opportunities to innovate and grow. And that's why you have seen this tremendous growth in Unilever, well reflected in its share price as well.
It is when you embarked in Unilever as the CEO that Unilever has really made that shift towards the Sustainable Living Plan, for example. And therefore, probably there is a clear link between the CEO, the top leadership, and the action of any company willing to make the world a better place. So how do you characterize the attributes of a top leader today who should try to make the world a better place with his corporation?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's the work of many. This company has had a long history from Lord Lever, who started to build houses called Port Sunlight, who originated the pension plans in the UK. I'm not sure we're all happy with that now, but who has always, this company started the Sustainable Agriculture Initiative, the Roundtable for Sustainable Fishery, palm oil. So this company has had a long history of doing well by doing good. Yet we were not able to translate that in a successful business model. I think the challenges of all the CEOs right now is how to take that complexity of this wealth, and we're getting to the leadership skills, and boil that down to some actionable activities or strategies that make your company grow. And that is really what we have concentrated ourselves on with this Unilever Sustainable Living Plan. So what are the attributes of tomorrow's leaders? First of all, I've always mentioned that the world itself is going to be more VUCA, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. So how do you operate in this VUCA world? You need some skills that some have and some need to acquire and some need to move on, and that is what you see happening in this world today. First of all, in this very volatile and fast-changing world, you need CEOs that have the ability to do the system thinking, to grasp the complexities of the issues. The relationships between water, energy, food would be an example of that, and boil that down to simplicity that gets translated into their business models. I call them system thinking. You need people with a strong purpose. Many of the challenges obviously have been around for a while. Many people tried them, and they're on that journey of trying to find solutions to issues of food security or climate change. You'll have a lot of skeptics along the way, lots of people who will be the naysayers. And how do you overcome that? By being really strongly driven by purpose. That, I think, aligns us globally. One of the reasons I participated in the high-level panel on the Millennium Development Goals, the purpose of irreversibly alleviating poverty and creating equitable and sustainable growth cannot be a higher purpose than that. The second thing that people need is obviously a partnership, new skills for many. In order to solve these things, you have to work together. And then a little bit more of a longer term focus. We tend to be driven by the shorter term. So you take the purpose, you take the partnership, and you take the longer term focus. You actually see that are skill sets that are more naturally attributed to the female population than the male population. And yet most of the CEOs in companies are still males, unfortunately, so we have to work that.
Thank you very much for these description of attributes of CEOs and leaders to make the world a better place. There is one missing, Paul, maybe, which is one of the topics of the evening tonight, is radical optimism. We view it, and I view it, as a key attribute to make the world a better place, because it gives you hope, it gives you momentum, it gives you action and positive spirit. Would you consider radical optimism as a real attribute and a necessary attribute? And are you yourself, Paul, a radical optimist?
I'm certainly an optimist. I don't know if a word radical, how to interpret that with my limited vocabulary and Dutch background. But I would really bring it back to purpose. If you're driven by strong purpose, that will guide you. Any CEO needs to see realism in the eye before you make solid plans for the companies. And many of the people out there, politicians, companies alike, are sometimes living in a world that doesn't reflect the real world. So I always really start not to be blinded by just optimism or cheerleading, if that is what the word radical means, but to be grounded in reality. A good characteristic of leadership is to see reality in the eye. What you need is more purpose than radical optimism. But I do agree with you. I would say, sticking with the initials of my name, which is the two P's, Paul Polman, I would say you need the purpose, you need the passion, and you need the positive attitude. I've long discovered that to let this little guy in your head pull you down to the negative path of not possible doesn't lead to anything. So I do keep my positive attitude. If you think you can, then you most likely will succeed. If you think you can't, you already have the answer, and that is what we definitely should avoid in this at this moment.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, remember the 3 Ps. I would add the 4th P of marketing, which is probably pragmatic. Because I see you as pragmatism and anchored, as you said, in the solid roots of Unilever and the world. Maybe one last question, because you know that we have a lot of people in the room tonight. We have alumni of INSEAD. We also have students of INSEAD. I do believe, and the INSEAD Alumni Association as well, together with the school, that the younger generation is really key in making the world a better place. So therefore at INSEAD we believe that it's very important to encourage those young leaders. And therefore we have decided for the first time ever to send 2 INSEAD students, whose names will be announced and released a bit later, to the One Young World Summit in Johannesburg next October. It is organized by David Jones, whom you know. It is organized also by Kate Robertson, who was with us in INSEAD Essentials #1 last year. And we decided to contribute, I will be there as well, by sending those 2 students. Would you have a final word to tell to the younger generation in terms of making the world a better place?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Interestingly, I was just at the Tec de Monterrey in Mexico talking to the young, and I've done that in Jakarta University or in the Bosphorus University in China in a few weeks' time. The global One Young World, the global shapers. I firmly believe that, and this is where my optimism comes from as well, that many of the solutions to today's and tomorrow's challenges will have to be solved by the young, and frankly also what I call the concerned caregivers, which are the women, and equally important constituency. And if you go back in history, you will also see that many of the great things that happened in history actually was driven by young people. Alexander the Great, when he conquered Macedonia, was barely 20 years old. Jeanne d'Arc in your country, when she did the siege of New Orleans, I think she was 19 years old. And the thing goes on. And I'm not even talking about the Zuckerbergs or the Bransons, who started great businesses and transformed markets, or the Steve Jobs in this world, who did that at the early ages of early 20s. So we need to give the young people that have that creativity a seat at the table. We need to listen to their ideas as well. Also for another reason. In an increasingly more interconnected global world, it is actually the young people that understand and can leverage that technology. Technology to communicate, technology to aggregate their voices, technology to demand transparency and hold governments and businesses accountable, and technology finally to drive new innovations to address some of these challenges. So the young people are very, very well placed. And frankly, the ones I meet at the One Young World, some of them the social entrepreneurs, some of them in companies like ours, have that passion and have that energy. If we can combine that with our experience and sometimes solutions that we can provide, which we try to do with a company like Unilever, I think we can create an enormous force to make this a better world for all. And frankly, as we said at the United Nations, the world we want. And I look forward to the conference that takes place in Johannesburg, and I applaud obviously Kate and David for their enormous initiative they've taken to create One Young World, and with all the young people here, the best, and certainly the 2 congratulations already.
Thank you for this interview. Thank you for your passion to make the world a better place, and thank you for all your leadership tips, which the audience will really love, I'm sure. Now we'll hand over to the panel with the one representative of Unilever, Bruno Wittvoet, your chairman in France, and other guys. Thank you again, and we hope to see you at INSEAD Essentials #3, which will be in September next year.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Enjoy the evening. Thanks for the opportunity. Thanks, Jean-Marc.